After the downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Indonesian multi-finance industries continue to enjoy a high growth during the last 2 years. And the growth in financing receivables is expected to grow again by at least 12% this year.
As one of the most important means of transportation nowadays, owning a car is a dream for many. Not only because it is more practical, but also because the condition of the public transportation, which is far from comfortable. There are many ways to purchase a car. If you don't have cash to buy directly, you can get credit from banks or multi-finance companies. Purchasing on credit has indeed become the choice of many people to own a car. Moreover, with the decline in interest rates and with a light down payment requirement, using loans to buy a car will be even more feasible. Both banks and multi-finance companies will have the same concept and role in providing bridging funds for you to buy a car if you don't have enough funds to pay cash. Banks and multi-finance companies will pay in advance a portion of the desired car price, then you periodically pay off the debt in installments every month. In addition to working in the same way as previously mentioned, both banks and multi-finance companies require a minimum down payment of 30% of the selling price of the car that has been agreed between the seller and the buyer. Even so, despite having a lot of similarities, the banks and multi-finance companies have applied different procedures, as well as having different disadvantages and advantages for their customers in applying for loans. The growth in car sales is the main factor that has led to a high growth in the financing of the multi-finance industry in Indonesia. Car sales fell sharply in 2020 due to reduced demand caused by COVID-19. However, since last year, car sales have started to recover again. Monthly sales have even almost reached 100,000 vehicles. Based on the report published by the Association of Indonesia Automotive Industries of Gaikindo, wholesale sales from factories to dealers totaled 282,125 vehicles during January to March 2023 period, an increase of 7% from 263,679 vehicles during the same period in the previous year. In 2019, car sales reached 1.03 million vehicles, but dropped sharply to 532,027 vehicles in 2020 and 887,202 vehicles in 2021 due to COVID-19 pandemic. Sales figures started to rise again in 2022 following the economic improvement. In that year, car sales reached 1.04 million vehicles. The recovery in car sales helped push up the multi-finance industry's financing business. Based on data released by the Financial Services Authority or OJK, outstanding financing receivables of the country's multi-finance industry as of January 2023 reached 420.6 trillion rupiah, or about $28.10 billion, growing 14.57% on an annual basis. The figure is higher compared to December 2022, with a growth of 14.18% year-on-year. OJK estimates the financing receivables of the country's multi-finance industry will grow by between 13 to 15% in 2023. OJK's chairman Mahendra Siregar said that the financing receivables of the multi-financing companies were expected to enjoy a double-digit growth on the back of the promising prospect of the auto sales in the domestic market. Mahendra believes that the increased activities both in the consumption and investment side will continue to support the growth of the multi-finance business, following the government's policy to remove COVID-19 related restrictions late last year. He also believes that the rising political temperature ahead of the 2024 general election and the presidential election will not affect security conditions, legal certainty, and the investment climate, including the business activities of the multi-finance companies.
Yes, after being hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021, Indonesia's multi-finance companies have begun to revive again following a strong recovery in the country's car sales in the last 2 years. It is an honor to have with us this afternoon Pak Suwandi Wiratno, Chairman of the Indonesian Financing Firms Associations, or APPI, will share with us about the prospect of the multi-finance business in a post-COVID-19 pandemic era. Good afternoon, Pak Suwandi. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Good afternoon, Bu Alin. How are you?
I'm good. Pak Suwandi, we would like to know from your point of view, how's the recovery of the multi-finance business post-pandemic, and then what's the latest state of this industry at this moment?
Okay. Post-pandemic, the multi-finance industry has somehow uh, recovered, and I think it has actually back to the year of 2019 total portfolio that we have around some 450 over trillion rupiah. And the reason of the recovery was actually caused by the success story of how governments is actually managing these pandemic issues of the coronavirus 2019. Coronavirus COVID-19 is actually affecting the industry of multi-finance back in the year of 2020. In the year of 2020, we didn't actually have growth. By fact, I think there was actually a minus growth of 18%, but then we managed to recover in the year of 2021 to minus 1%, and 2022 we have managed to actually then grow by some close to 14%.
Close to 14%, such a good recovery, strong recovery that is shown by the multi-finance industry so well. So other than the factor from the successful Indonesian government's handling of the pandemic, what other factors do you think that contribute to the robust recovery of the multi-finance industry, Pak Suwandi?
Yeah, first of all, I think it was a quick response, during the pandemic, where OJK, or Financial Service Authority, had a discussion with us, not only with the finance company, but also with the banking industry. The first OJK, action was actually issued an OJK regulations of restructuring or rescheduling process, whereby we need to actually help our customers or our debtors to recover by, to restructure and rescheduling for those people who are affected by COVID-19. With those situations, we were a bit worried at the beginning, whereby the restructuring process wasn't actually smooth. But after 3 or 4 months, we managed to actually sit down with our customers, not by face to face, but everything through online, through the process of this online process of restructuring. It has ever reached in our industry to 50% of our portfolio has been restructured. And the amount was quite phenomenal. It's about 200 over trillion of our customers being restructured with the conditions whereby we didn't actually grow. We have a contractions of the growth by minus 18%, but most of the customers that has been restructured somehow recovered back as well, and they paid their installment. And by fact, I think today's situations, the restructuring portfolio is already less than 1%. And on top of that, also the success story of these issues was also coupled with the government support, recovery of the automotive industry. If you actually realize that somewhere around 2021, going to 2022, government gave a stimulus of not charging the luxury tax for certain cars.
So thanks to government's prompt responses, that the multi-finance industry can recover so well. So Pak Suwandi would like to know how important is the contribution of car sales to the revenue or business of multi-finance industry.
Well, okay, our business, our portfolio were actually dominated not only with car or with four-wheelers passengers, but it is also dominated with two-wheelers. So the four-wheelers and two-wheelers automotive industry is actually supporting the growth of our businesses, not only on the new type of cars and motorcycles, also the used financing is also growing so fast. So the portfolio of our industry today sum up around 65 to 66% were actually dominated by this automotive industry.
Pak, we know that in recent years we talk a lot about electric vehicle. From your point of view, how's the prospect of EV in Indonesia, and do customers who purchase the EV also use or utilize the financing?
Well, electronic vehicle was just actually starting, and I think it was just started during the COVID periods. And the sales of EV vehicle was not actually in a big amount of volumes as at today, but we're going towards that definitely. And I think the preparations of an EV industry needs to be supported by the government as well, because the buyers of EV vehicles were actually waiting for the infrastructures like charging stations. If you actually try to look at the benefits of people driving an EV vehicles, definitely is there, because the cost of maintenance is no longer there. You don't have to pay the gasoline. The gasoline cost probably will reduce because it's being you just need to charge an electric to your cars and motorcycles. But again, I think we are moving towards an EV vehicles, but certain issues is actually needs to be done by all players. The governments need to actually also build the infrastructures. And again, I think the introduction of EV was there, but the price of an EV cars also is still high. Some 40% of those is actually the battery cost, and it really raised the concerns of the buyers of EV users. So again, I think we need to support the government's plan that we are moving to a sustainable financing, to green financings, towards. But I think it will still takes times, and I think we'll only start of the volume of the EV vehicles probably somewhere around 2030. Will only start the year of 2030 onwards.
I see. Pak Suwandi, so the OJK estimate that the multi-finance industry will grow around 13 to 15% this year with the looming global risk. Do you think that this estimate is realistic enough, or will the global risk affect our market domestically, in your opinion?
Yeah, with what is actually with what is actually happening in the world situations whereby you have the Ukraine and Russian war. Europe is actually suffering with a very high inflation rate. America also is not doing well, but Indonesia shows a very good numbers of the GDP growth as well as our industry. Our industry in the first quarter of 2023, I think, has grown up somewhere around more than even 15%. The projection of 30 to 15% was actually quite optimistic, and we are optimistic to also achieve the target of this 13 and 15%, even though we have certain issues also in our countries that the working times also in the year of 2023, probably we projected that we need to speed up a little bit of our working process up to the year of up to the month of October, because October onwards, we are looking forward to the next general elections. So year of 2023, of the 12-month horizons working process, and I think majority of our players, majority of our members, multi-finance companies actually has speed up since the beginning of the year.
Okay, Pak Suwandi, one last question for you regarding the non-performing financing. What can we do about it? As in the collection, without using violence. As we all know, on the news, we've heard that there are some companies that are still using that collectors who seize the vehicles on the street. What do you think we should do so that these practices will not taint the image of the multi-finance industry in the country?
Well, it's an interesting question. That collection process will always be there, and I think we need to actually send a message to the publics that for those people who's actually obtain any loans from any financial institution, including the multi-finance companies, they have to actually be disciplined in actually performing their payments. The reasons of our non-performing financing ratios today are pretty low was because since April 2019, OJK has somehow connected us with the banking industry that we are now able to check on each of the customers' applications that comes to our industry, to our players, to our companies, that we can check the performance payments of each individuals. So if they have a very bad performance behaviors, payment behaviors, it will be rejected. What happens for those customers who are actually delinquent? As you all understand that, multi-finance company has been very, very kind enough, and we are actually kind of proposing any restructuring and rescheduling for those bad customers. The key point is communications. We don't want to actually end up with repossessions, with debt collections towards the seizing of the properties of our customers. But again, I think in the real situation, what really happens on the street when we actually being backed up by the law of fiducia number 42 1999, we have the power of execution by itself. But in many cases, the execution will actually happen where the customers are not doing the right things. What happens during the execution? The car is not with the customers. The customer has run away. The car is with we can actually identify where the customer is, but the car is under the possession of other people. And all those things are actually a criminal case under the law of number 36, phase 36, the law number 42, 1999. So the process of executions on the street there, whereby the media is actually normally found out, is actually happens because the car is under the possession of other people. And that was a wrongdoings that has been done by the debtors. So again, I think we are also in our industry, we understand today's situations. We need to do a proper collections process of seizing the properties of the customers and the debtors. So there are four items that needs to be actually carried by our debt collectors. First, the debt collector has to bring the summon letters that has never been replied by the debtors because the debtor somehow ignored the summon letters. And the second one, the debtor has to actually also carry the certifications from SPPI. This is like a driver license. And number three, they have to have the power of attorney from the companies that he is the right person to actually doing the executions. And number four, he also has to bring the copy of the certificate of fiducia itself. If you bring all these four documents and they do it in a polite manners, so we have the power of execution on its own. But in a certain condition, when the car is still actually under the debtors' possessions, when the debtors are not keen to actually surrender the vehicles, the debtors can actually reply to us and okay, they are not satisfied with this debt collectors process. I would like to go to the court. So be it. But if in the case where the cars is not under the possessions of the debtors, we have the right to repossess the vehicles because it's not under our debtors' names. It's somehow other people's is actually have the cars under an illegal process of transfer of the car itself.
So that's the backstory. Thank you very much, Bapak Suwandi Wiratno, Chairman of the Indonesian Financing Firms Association, APPI, and best of luck for your future agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Alin. Have a good day.
Have a good one.